So, what if I told you that a college thesis from 1996, right when the internet was starting to change absolutely everything, actually predicted the future? Today, we're opening up a time capsule to explore how radio, a 100-year-old medium, was imagined right on the brink of the digital age.
This is the bold claim made by Luciano Lombardi in his thesis. In a world that was about to be dominated by visual, digital media, he was betting big on radio. He declared that it was still totally relevant and would be one of the most important communication tools of the future. I mean, let's just think about the context for a second. 1996. The internet as we know it was just being born. So going all in on radio, wasn't that a little bit crazy? That's the big question we're going to answer. Was he a visionary? Or maybe just a little nostalgic? Let's dive in. To really get this prediction, we first have to go back to where it all started, Rome, 1996. What was the young radio listener like back then? Well, the data from the thesis gives us a perfect snapshot. And here's our first surprise. The peak listening time wasn't the morning, like you might think of today with the daily commute. The thesis shows it was the afternoon. And the reason is simple. In the mornings, the young people were all in school. Radio was the companion for homework and free time after class. And how they listened is even more revealing. It wasn't on the go. The whole experience was centered around the living room stereo, the hi-fi system. It was a stationary act, a dedicated experience right in the heart of the home, which is so different from just carrying the radio around in our pockets like we do today. These were the soundtracks to their lives. Stations like Radio Dimensione Suono, Radio Globo, or Radio DJ weren't just frequencies, they were identities. Each one had its own style, and they were shaping the musical tastes and culture for a whole generation of Romans. And here is a direct link to our own time. The number one complaint from young people back in 1996, according to the thesis, was advertising interruptions. It seems like the desire for a commercial-free experience is one thing that hasn't changed at all. The second biggest complaint was too much chatter. They wanted more music, fewer interruptions from the hosts. Which is kind of funny when you think about it, because today, it's often the host personality and their ability to build a community that really gets an audience hooked. Okay, so we've seen the what, when, and where of their listening habits. But the thesis went deeper, asking the most important question: why? Beyond the music, what fundamental human need was the radio satisfying back in 1996?
And this is really the core of the research. Radio's main job wasn't just to entertain. According to the thesis, it was to fight loneliness. It was a tool to break the silence, to feel a sense of companionship, and to connect with the outside world. It was basically an antidote to isolation.
And this is the perfect bridge between then and now. The technology has changed radically, from the hi-fi to the smartphone. But the underlying need, it's exactly the same. What was breaking the silence at home in 1996? Well, today, that's about finding a human voice, a carefully curated selection to rescue us from the coldness of algorithms. Radio has always been about participation. But how is the way a listener goes from just passively receiving to actively participating changed? Well, technology has completely transformed it. Just to set the scene, remember that the 90s were a wild time of transition for music. The CD was king, but new formats like the mini disc were already showing up. And right in the middle of this physical media revolution, radio was still the ultimate musical tastemaker. This is how you made your voice heard in 1996. It was a pretty straightforward, linear process. You'd listen, you'd pick up your landline phone, dial, and if you were lucky, your voice would be on the air requesting a song. It was a one-to-one interaction, limited by the number of available phone lines. Now compare that to today. Participation isn't a single event anymore. It's a constant flow. You listen on the app while you're commenting on X, you're watching a video of the host on TikTok, and you're voting in a poll on Instagram. The interaction is continuous, it's multimedia, and it's all about community. So here's the crucial point. Radio has stopped being just an audio medium. It's become the center of an entire ecosystem that both feeds and is fed by social media, creating a much richer and more immersive experience. So with all of that in mind, let's circle back to our original question. We've looked at the past in 1996, and we've seen the reality of today. It's time for the verdict. Was Luciano Lombardi's thesis right about the future of radio? The thesis imagined a future driven by technology. It talked about DAB, about CD quality sound, and text info on little screens. But the reality? Well, it's been a social revolution. Hosts have become influencers, and audiences have turned into global communities that interact across borders. So, The conclusion is just fascinating. The thesis was right about the most important thing. Radio didn't just survive, it thrived. But it wasn't because of better broadcast technology like DAB. It survived because its ability to offer a human connection became more valuable than ever. And to be fair to Lombardi, he already sensed what the key was. He wrote in his own thesis about this effective communication. So maybe he got the technological how wrong, but he perfectly understood the human why, that emotional core that would guarantee radio's survival. And we'll end with this thought to reflect on. In an age where algorithms are constantly feeding us more of what we already like, kind of locking us into these bubbles, is there a new kind of value, almost a luxury, in the simple act of trusting a human curator, a friendly voice to surprise us and help us discover something new? Maybe that is the real future radio was always meant to have.